Hey guys, this is Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survival. It's 2 a.m. right now. I really should be in bed, but I want to do this video. I just realized going through some of the different survival forums and such online that people don't really check who they're getting their advice from in terms of survival and preparedness planning. And that can be a pretty dangerous thing to do. At the very least, it's a huge waste of your time, huge waste of money even. And if things ever do get ugly, you may be in a world of hurt because of the ill advice you've been taking for granted. I at least talk about things I've gone through back in Argentina with the economic collapse over there. I talk about things that I've experienced when I had to leave as well. And if I'm talking about something else that I haven't experienced personally, I make sure I do a ton of research. Pretty much everything that I end up talking about, and especially when I advise others, I make sure it's properly researched. Even stuff that I've gone through in the real world myself, I verify it that it happened in other places and that it's solid good advice. You know, even your own personal experience may not be enough, you know, because it may be something that it's just, you know, limited to your own circumstances, your own culture, your own country. So you have to verify, you have to make sure that it has happened in other places at other times in history. But obviously, not all people do this as well. There's actually lots of people just talking because they have an internet connection and a video camera. And sometimes you end up looking at it, you know, that really makes no sense. And you keep on listening that, you know, stuff that they are talking about seriously, and suddenly they say, you know, yeah, because this is what happened in that episode of The Walking Dead. You're like, dude, are you really talking about The Walking Dead, and you from that come to a conclusion of something that should be done for preparing in the real world for a disaster and emergency? And you know, it's not only that, even a TV series like some of the ones you see in National Geographic or Discovery Channel, you know, Man vs. Wild kind of thing. That's entertainment. It's intended to keep you entertained for 1 hour. That's basically the objective. You cannot take that as, you know, realistic, useful preparedness information. Then you have people that have a certain personal interest. For example, if I'm advising you to move to, you know, Montana, you know, and I keep on saying how every other city in the world is going to be burning down and such, the U.S. is going to be collapsing fully, and if you want to stay alive, you have to move to Montana or, you know, Wyoming or whatever state it is. If I'm trying to convince you of that, and at the same time I have a real estate company that sells property in those places, then my advice is not really objective. Then it's in my best financial interest to convince you of something. So, you know, you really have to question, you know, even the integrity of such a person. I don't know, but at the very least, that person is biased towards convincing you of something that's going to be putting money in his pocket, usually quite a bit of money in his pocket. Then you have people that are experts in a field that was created by their own imagination. This is like, you know, Star Trek. I'm not really a Star Trek fan or anything, but it's actually a good example. If I am a Star Trek, you know, expert, and I know everything about Star Trek, I know everything about how the different Star Trek the ships in the Star Trek world are made, the engines they use, the proton torpedoes they fire and such. I'm an expert in the different races within the Star Trek world, their cultures and their languages. I mean, that's all great and such. But dude, you're an expert on something that you created out of your own imagination. And believe it or not, this happens in the survival preparedness world as well. You have guys that are experts in the disaster that happened in their own mind, and how their own fictional characters resolve something in this fantasy world of theirs that they wrote about in a novel, and they're an expert in that field, in a field that worked out well in their own imagination. That's that's very bad advice. I mean, what I'm trying to say, guys, is that be sure who you're getting your advice from. Has that person experienced that personally? Well, that's a good point in favor of his specific position. Does this work? Yeah, well, I actually did this, or I've seen this work that way. So yeah, at least in that case, I saw it work, or I researched it and it happened in South Africa, it happened in Bosnia, it happened here or there, it happened in different places at different periods of time. If you're ever in doubt about things actually working or not, you have the internet. Google it. If the advice you're seriously considering has never happened ever before anywhere at any period of time, then you're probably wasting quite a bit of your time, maybe your money, and it may end up being something you will be regretting later on. So, at the very least, do check that sort of thing. There's so many little pieces of things that I'm thinking about right now. Like the idea of ammunition becoming a currency, like a standard currency of some sort. Not talking about selling ammunition during a shortage. I'm talking about people thinking that you're gonna be trading and actually buying stuff. It's gonna be becoming that ammunition will become a real currency of some sort, because someone wrote about it somewhere. And you think about it, did it ever happen? No, never. And then you think about it a little bit more. How would that actually work? Guys that think you're going to be going to a store and buying a burger with, give me a second, here you have a couple of rounds of 45 ACP. Do you have any change? Yeah, here you have 2 rounds of 22 long rifle. Ammunition is pretty sensitive in terms of how you store it. Ammunition can be reloaded with dirt on the inside. You have no way of verifying if that round is ever going to be firing, and the only moment you'll know is when you put it in a gun and actually shoot it. And that may be a round that it's intended in saving your life. So how could you possibly give such value to something that is so dependent on how it was stored, and that could be extremely easily tampered with, and basically created like a counterfeit, instead of a counterfeit currency? A guy with a reloading press reloads a few hundred rounds of dirt instead of gunpowder. Is that really a currency? Of course not. And that's why it never happened. It was it never ended up being used that way for all these obvious reasons. But people maybe read it somewhere and they think, yeah, that's what's going to be happening. Verify it. Verify anything that you have a little bit of a doubt. Verify it, and be suspicious of who you're taking advice from as well. Know who that person is, what that person has been through, what that person has done, and if he's really someone you should be taking his advice from. Guys, that's all for now. Take care. Have a great day. See you in our next video.